Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We're going to get started. We are going to record this tonight, so don't feel the need to take copious notes. I will send out the recording and the slides in the coming week so that you have them and can reference them. My name is Sabrina Adler. I am the principal here at Ralston Middle School. This is my 4th year in the district and 4th year as principal. I actually have a 7th grader at Ralston and a 4th grader at Central, so I'm also a parent in the district. Prior to this, I was a principal and assistant principal in the Redwood City School District. And prior to that, I was a math teacher in the Cupertino School District. Ms. Jorgensen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kelly Jorgensen, Assistant Principal at Ralston Middle School. This is also my 4th year at Ralston. Prior to becoming an assistant principal, I taught science for 20 plus years in Redwood City and also in San Mateo. Thank you for coming tonight.
And I'm Patrick Wilson. I'm also an assistant principal at Ralston in my 4th year. You'll see a theme there. And actually, it's pretty rare that an administrative team stays together consistently for this long. I really appreciate that about Ralston. It is, as I said, my 4th year. Prior to that, I taught humanities, English and social studies up in Burlingame.
I am Lisa Kafka. I am currently the 8th grade counselor at Ralston, and I will be looping back around to be the 6th grade counselor at Ralston next year. This is my 3rd year at Ralston. Before I was at Ralston, I was a teacher for many years and a counselor in Mountain View.
Okay, we're going to get started. We're going to cover a little bit about the bell schedule and classes this evening, some about academic and social emotional support, school spirit and engagement, which I always love, and our clubs and groups and sports, lots of fun. Some upcoming dates, we'll have our contact information in at the end, and then we'll take some questions. We'll try to answer questions throughout. I know a lot of you always have questions about math placement and PE and uniforms and all sorts of other things. So we will try to cover that in all the slides, but we can go into more depth if there's more questions on that. So let's get started. This is a look at our bell schedule. We expect it to be fairly similar for next year. There is a potential we may go a little bit later on Wednesdays next year, but more to come on that. Wouldn't be a ton later, but there may be a slight bell schedule adjustment. Otherwise, we do expect to keep the same bell schedule. As you'll see, there are 6 class periods a day, but actually students have 7 different class periods. You can see that purple period, the 7th period, wanders throughout the week. It looks really complicated. It is definitely funky, but the students get used to it pretty quickly and learn their schedule. We right now are serving breakfast at snack and before school on Wednesdays. That may change a little bit on Wednesdays next year, but that's still in the works. And then lunch should be at the same time next year. You'll see again that they have each class 4 times a week and generally follow some kind of order for the most part. All right, go ahead and continue to the next slide. Our 6th graders have 7 classes, as I said, so they have 2 periods of language arts, and it's considered a core, so they are with the same group of students for those 2 periods. Could be 1st and 2nd period, it could be 3rd and 4th period, 5th and 7th. There's a lot of different combinations. They'll also have social studies, math, the 6CC, which is Common Core, or 6AS, which is our advanced standing math, science, PE, and then an elective, some kind of music, wheel, or academic support. We'll talk a little bit more about those options. And I know that you have the link to sign up for those as well. In 7th grade and 8th grade, our students only have 1 period of language arts, so they get to actually have 2 electives. So we'll talk a little bit about the 7th and 8th grade electives too, just to preview those tonight. We have a number of students with IEPs and 504s, so they'll have a lot of the same options as our gen ed students, but there are also some smaller resource classes for language arts and for math and for academic support, and those will be discussed during transition meetings. Our 504 students that need some help with executive functioning could be in a directed studies class, but typically will take study skills if they need that executive functioning and homework help support. And then we do actually have some smaller classes as well, in addition to all those that are for math and language arts. They are general ed classes and some ELD classes to help with English language support. One of the things that I want to emphasize about a comprehensive middle school is that the students mix and match every day. So schedules are going to be really, really different for each student. So some students will have PE first period, some might have math, some might have science, some might have social studies. They mix and match all day. So the only time they'll have that same grouping of students is the 2 periods of language arts. Otherwise, they're going to get to know a lot of different students and make a lot of new friends. We are expecting almost 400 incoming 6th graders for next year. So it is going to be a big group. Typically we're around 375-ish. So it's going to be a little bit bigger, but not irregular. We had, when we started our first year 4 years ago, we had 410 students in some of our classes. So within normal-ish range for us. But it means that what we say on our master schedule is there's usually like 15 sections of everything. So 15 sections of science, 15 sections of social studies, 15 sections of PE. And for PE for 6th graders, we just have 6th grade PE, and 7th and 8th grade, they do mix. So lots of different sections of students and teachers. Very popular topic is our math placement. And as I mentioned, I'm formerly a math teacher, so I do oversee the math department and work very closely with them throughout the year and on placement. You've probably heard a little bit from Ching Pei already. I know she sent a letter out. We determined 6th grade placement based on that February inspect that they took, the MARS tasks, the MAC that they took in February or March. And then for 6th grade, we do use the SBAC scores. We do not in other grade levels. And we typically don't have all those in until June, sometimes early July. So that is why you will not get math placement sooner. It just takes time. We have to have all the data and really take a look at it. But I do have a picture of the pathway here. So as I mentioned, 6CC and 6AS are our starting points for 6th grade. But one of the things that I really like to emphasize at Ralston, which is really different than a lot of other middle schools, is the growth mindset that we have. So students may place into 6CC, but they get to middle school and we see very quickly that's not the right place. We will move them. We move students up till the first semester to 6AS. And if we need to move down as well, but typically moving students up. So just because students don't get placed in accelerated math right away doesn't mean they won't have that opportunity. Even in 7th grade and 8th grade, we do some movement during the year as well. So in 8th grade, I have kids that do go from 8CC to algebra within that first semester. We have kids that go from 7CC to algebra in their 8th grade year. So there's a lot of variation. One thing you will see is that there is kind of a fixed pathway to geometry. So you have to be in algebra in your 7th grade year to get to that geometry course in 8th grade. And I'll just throw out numbers because it's been pretty consistent each year. Typically, the number of 6AS students that go right to algebra is right around 45 to 55 students. So think about almost 400 coming in. You can do that math. If you actually want to see more data on placement and how many kids are in each course offering, I did attach my principal's copy from earlier in the year that when I send these out, you can do some more digging in there to show you the numbers. I've been tracking that. I do want to emphasize we don't accept outside coursework. So I know many of you are going to tell me my student does RSM or Kumon or Singapore Math or Beast Academy. That's excellent, that's enriching, but we do not factor that into placement. The principal's coffee slides will also detail what the placement process looks like for 7th and 8th grade because it is a little bit different from 6th grade. We do, as I mentioned, have some smaller classes as well. So for some of our students, they need a more intensive course. So I kind of call it, for example, 6CC light, which means they're going to get all the 6th grade standards. They're going to be in a class that's probably 10 to 15 students instead of an average of closer to 26. but they're also going to be working on some skills that they are missing and they really need to strengthen to be ready for high school. So this is a newer offering. It is their math class instead of an elective, so that they place the emphasis on practicing and doing their homework. We are trying something new next year and offering a geometry elective. So as I mentioned, 7th and 8th graders got 2 electives. So we are going to allow students who are in 7AS this year as 7th graders that are performing strongly to have the option to replace one of their electives with geometry next year. So that would be a new pilot for us. The reason that I decided to go that route is I know a lot of students do a lot of outside courses, and some try to take the geometry course through an approved outside course for high school that they will accept that is WASC accredited. And they're just very watered down courses. So I spoke with the department head at Carlmont earlier this year a couple times, and we decided it was just better to maybe have many of these students take it at Ralston and get a full year where we know it's much richer and will prepare them better for high school. So stay tuned. We'll give you some updates next year to see how that's going and how many students actually participate. But it is a new offering that I think will be popular with many families.
All right. Next up, we're talking a little bit about 6th grade electives. As Miss Adler shared before, 6th graders get that choice between going into the wheel or going into music or a support class. For band, experience is required. Same thing with orchestra, but choir, there is no experience required. For the wheel, the whole purpose of the wheel is really to give students kind of a small sampling of the elective offerings that we have at Ralston, and we actually have a really great electives program. So it's a really good opportunity to try new things, maybe discover a new passion or interest. And then if they really like it, they can sign up for the full either semester or year-long version of that course in 7th or 8th grade. The offerings do vary year to year, so sometimes there are a few tweaks here and there. In terms of the support classes, we do offer study skills, which is generally executive functioning support, sometimes built in time during the school day as well for homework, directed studies for our IEP support, and then there is a math support class that would be taken in addition to your math course. You are going to be selecting that elective on Wednesday, May 7th, so you have a little bit of time to think about it, and feel free to ask us questions if you have any about 6th grade electives. This is just an idea here for you. This is our current year wheel. There are 2 periods that offer wheel. So if you have 5th period wheel, for example, let's say you started the year in Miss Graves' strategy class. At the end of the first quarter, you would switch to Fun with French with Mr. Gannat. The next quarter, you would switch to Art with Miss Paisley. And the next quarter, you would switch to Coding/STEM with Miss Marty. Same thing for 6th period, except there is one additional stop on that wheel. So it's possible your student in 6th period may not get all of the offerings, but there is that additional animation there in 6th period. And again, this is really just to try them out, see if you like it. If you don't, that's okay. You'll be switching pretty soon, and hopefully you'll find something you do like. One thing I do like about the wheel is that the students move together. So it's the same class that would be moving together to the next subject with a new teacher. And that way they've already they know each other. They have that classroom dynamic and they know how to collaborate with one another when they get into the next few quarters.
All right, one of the big jumps to middle school, of course, is PE. So coming into 6th grade, what you need to know about our PE program is that we change for PE. So what you need to do is you need to go into the locker room and you need to change your clothes for your PE class. Before you come to school, you're going to have an opportunity to buy a uniform for PE. If you take a look at the pictures there, you can see some of our students wearing that uniform. What it consists of is black shorts and a black t-shirt. It has the Ralston logo on them. If you choose not to wear that particular uniform, you can wear black shorts, black sweats, and just a plain black t-shirt. That's up to you. We will have the flyer out to purchase those things, I think, through the summer, and you'll be able to pick up those items at the barbecue when we come back to school. So that'll be before school starts, and you'll have your uniform ready to go. What PE looks like, we have 4 to 6 week units, and as you can see there, we do really fun, cool things like archery. We have, right now they're doing Olympics, so all of our kids are on teams and they're doing all different Olympic things, and they're competing against their other teams. Today they were playing like capture the flag, but with balls. They were also playing like basketball games and things like that. They came together, they're making their own flags. They came up with their own cheers, things like that. It's really, really cool. They do a dance unit. Not only they learn dances, but they come up with their own dances and then perform it for the rest of the kids in the gym. It's really fun. They learn how to play very basic rugby, nothing major, but they've learned something called chook ball as well. So they're learning all of these different games that maybe they haven't learned before. So it's a really fun period for the kids to learn how to not only stay healthy and learn physical fitness, but to learn new games and strategies of how to play the games as well. So make sure you look forward to ordering your uniforms during the summer.
Good question in the chat before we move on from PE. If my student plays sports, do they still do PE? Yes, there are mandated minutes from the state of California. Actually, interestingly enough, this is the only subject in the state of California that has mandated minutes for every 2 weeks. In 6th grade, it is 200 minutes, and in 7th and 8th grade, it's 400 minutes. So everybody will have PE. And then if you choose to play sports at Ralston or outside of Ralston on top of this, you still get to have PE. And it's a great opportunity to just get to know students and interact. So yes, definitely everyone has PE.
Absolutely.
All right, there. I do want to highlight a few more electives because you do want to look forward as well, like to 7th and 8th grade, where you get the chance to pick 2 electives. Because of that funky schedule that Miss Adler showed you earlier. Actually, one advantage of it is that students in 7th and 8th grade get 2 electives, which is pretty rare in middle school, and 6th graders get an additional English class, which really helps support the the additional writing demands that come with middle school, get them used to that. So that's why we don't have 2 in 6th grade, but as they get older into 7th and 8th grade, they do choose 2 electives. Here's some fun pictures of various electives here. This is kind of an overview. Sometimes we have changes from year to year, but this is an idea of what we could offer for electives for next year. So we do have animation, which is always very popular with Mr. Pomeroy. We do have art, and then separately art with an emphasis more on ceramics. Band, of course, with its 3 different levels. We have choir, we have computer science, coding, robotics. Culinary arts is another popular one where students get to cook at school and learn some really life skills, cooking and sewing. Finally, or not finally, but we also have directed studies, as I mentioned before, and study skills. And then you can see on the right side a couple of other options as well. 6th graders do not take a language course, but they will take that in 7th and 8th grade if they so choose.
Ms. Kafka is going to tell you a little bit about how counseling and all of our academic and social emotional supports work at Ralston.
Hi, yes. So we are really, really lucky at Ralston to have 3 full-time counselors. We, at this point, each take a grade level. So this year I'm the 8th grade counselor, but next year I will be looping back around to 6th grade. And then I will stay with your 6th graders through 7th grade and 8th grade, just as I did with this group of 8th graders. I joined them in 6th grade, and I have been with them all 3 years. The really nice thing about that is our counselors get to know our students really, really well, and are able to support them all 3 years. We have 2 other counselors at Ralston, our current 6th and 7th grade counselors who will be moving up with their students. And that is Miss Fela Murray. She's currently the 6th grade counselor and will be moving to 7th grade next year. And Miss Brittany Jolivet, who is currently the 7th grade counselor and will be moving with Miss Jorgensen to 8th grade next year. We are a really close-knit team, and while we have the principals loop with students as well, we all work with all kids. So if there's a student who connects with a particular counselor more, they can absolutely see that one. Or if one of our counselors is out, we always have 2 other counselors who are available to meet with kids. We collaborate really closely together, the principals and counselors, and we meet the students where they're at with whatever they need at school. We also have the Wayfinder SEL program, which your students are likely also doing at their elementary schools currently. That curriculum is administered by all of our classroom teachers. So every teacher on Wednesday mornings, they teach a Wayfinder lesson, and we have room built into the schedule for that program. And our counselors also support our teachers in implementing that curriculum. We also have lots of other cool activities that counselors kind of take the lead on at Ralston. We have a wellness room, which is our room 18, which students can use at lunch and various other times during the day, which we've got couches and games and sand tables and fidgets and lots of, and in fact, we have headphones for students who need a break from noise. So that room is available to students who just kind of need a break. We also have a therapy dog come to campus once a month currently, and we maybe even more next year. We'll have to see. We also have visits from farm animals that come from Animal Assisted Happiness 3 to 4 times throughout the year, just as ways for kids to have something that they enjoy at school and have, animals can always give a sense of wellness and well-being. And we actually have the farm animals coming tomorrow since testing is going on right now. We're very excited about that. Yeah, I think that's about it for counseling.
We know that middle school can be a tough time as students are going through puberty, they're testing boundaries, they're learning about who they are. So we really like to do a lot of fun, spirited events and things that students can participate in. So for example, we've got a few pictures here. We've got our science fair. In the center, we did something new this year. We did a semi-formal winter Valentine's Day dance. The students got all dressed up, and actually their ticket price came with dinner. We catered, and so they got to eat and then go to the dance all right on campus here. We do carnivals and social events. New this year, on many of our Fridays, we have put out an invitation to grade levels to do waffles with administrators. So we have a bunch of waffle irons in the kitchen, and starting at 7:45, students in that grade level that signed up can come in and hang out with the administrators. We build community, we make waffles, and the kids think that's great, especially when they get to add chocolate chips to their waffles. We, as you can see in the bottom right corner, there's one of our therapy dogs that comes to visit. So just lots of different things. On the next slide, you'll see a list of some of the different things that we do throughout the year. So to kick off our year, and you are all invited, our welcome back barbecues right before school starts. That's a really popular event with hundreds and hundreds of families that come to those events to come have some barbecue and get back to the swing of things. We have our web orientation, which we'll talk a little bit more about. Web stands for Where Everybody Belongs. This is led by our student government leaders. So we have around 50 7th and 8th grade student government leaders that put on a lot of our activities throughout the year, and they run the orientation. They actually come back before the orientation to train for 2 days with the administrators and the student government teacher, and they're ready to welcome those sixth graders on that Thursday before school starts. We do lunchtime competitions, lots of different social events throughout the year for the different grade levels. We have our concerts, we have lots of collaboration between our elective department and different classes, spirit days. Our sixth graders don't get to come to all of the dances, but they do get to come to the April dance. So they came last Friday night. We boogied down from 7 to 9 in the gym. We have the gym that has the DJ. We rent some photo booths and the person prints out pictures right then and there. So the kids get to select backdrops and take pictures. And then for those that don't like to dance, our MUR becomes a rec room with pool tables and board games. Last week, I rented classic arcade games. So they were excited to play Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and some of those vintage games. We do Student of the Month recognition, birthday celebrations, sports, which we'll talk a little bit more about, lots of clubs and groups, and every month there's some kind of web event for our sixth graders to really orient them throughout the year. This is a list of current clubs and groups that we have on campus this year. It can vary each year depending on the interest of the students and staff. Any student can start a club. They would just need to come to an administrator and we help them hopefully find a parent or a teacher that can help lead and determine where they're going to meet and if they need some seed money. So these are just some of them. They vary, like I said, every year, and we try to expand them. It really depends on the student interests.
All right.
Ralston has, oh,
Go ahead, Patrick.
yeah, Ralston has quite a bit of offerings for after-school sports here. We do compete in the Art David Sports League, which means we compete against San Mateo Foster City School District, Half Moon Bay, San Carlos, Ravenswood, Palo Alto, and our other friends within BRSSD. In the fall, we have girls volleyball, cross country, and we're actually offering flag football next year, which is going to be a lot of fun. And then in the winter, we do basketball. And in the spring, we have boys volleyball, tennis, track and field, and soccer. All of these are very popular and well attended. We have quite a few teams for these sports.
All right, something special that our sixth graders get to do within our science programs is we team with the Marine Science Institute. And what we do is we get to study our watershed within Belmont. And what that entails is looking at human impact within just our backyard, especially at Water Dog Lake. So we get to do a couple of things. We get to walk to Water Dog Lake. We get to do some water quality testing at Water Dog Lake. And then we also get to, as you can see in some of the pictures there, we get to go to the Marine Science Institute and we get to get on a canoe and we get to go with our friends and learn how to canoe as a team. And we get to do some water quality testing as well in the slough in Redwood City. And we take all that information and we analyze it and we determine how we as humans could better our watershed here in Belmont and how that affects our bay and then ultimately our ocean. So it's a great program through our science department and with the partnership with the Marine Science Institute that Ralston gets to do. And it's something that we're really proud of and something that we hope that you guys get to look forward to next year.
As I mentioned, our big program for sixth graders is called Web, where everybody belongs. And it kicks off with the orientation in August. And then that first Friday of school, the students meet up with their web leaders and their group. So they're assigned to a group for the year. It's a mix of students from all the different schools. So we deliberately try to mix them up, but there'll be someone probably they recognize from their school. And they eat lunch together that first Friday, check in, just make sure they're comfortable, if there's any questions. And then there's some kind of event every single month that our student government puts together. So I think typically in September, it's a scavenger hunt at lunch around campus where they're running around and solving clues and riddles. One of my favorites is in October. It's actually after school. We have a Halloween themed carnival. The web leaders, student government kids, put together booths and run a carnival for our sixth graders. So we do something each month. Actually, today was cookie decorating. So we had tons of frosting. We had cookies and M&Ms and sprinkles and everything. And the students, of course, were enjoying piling the sugar on top of sugar and enjoying their cookies at lunch, but just another opportunity to bond today. So lots of different fun things. And we will do our best to try to put out a calendar at the beginning of the year of all of the events. We try to plan the best we can during the summer. Obviously, sometimes things change, but we are usually pretty good about when the sixth grade events are. And so you'll get a listing of those so you can mark your calendars. The orientation itself is Thursday, August 7th from 8:30 to 12:30. So from 8:30 to 9, we check in the students. They get some Ralston swag right to start. So they get a little Ralston backpack, and it has a shirt in it that later in the day they'll tie-dye. So they have their first Ralston shirt. We start as a group in the gym at 9. We do some activities together and some competitions, build some spirit. Then students break out with their group. All of the groups have some kind of animal name: cats, dogs, Highland cows, the hyenas. There's typically 25-ish different groups. They will depart to somewhere on campus and they will sit with their group and they will do a variety of team building challenges. Then they also get their schedule that day ahead of all of our other students, and the web leaders will take them around campus on a tour, help them to find their classes and figure out what their day will look like. And then we come back together at the end after they've toured, tie-dyed shirts, done these icebreakers, and just debrief. And at 12 o'clock, we serve them pizza. They get to hang out with their friends. And at 12:30, you get to pick them up. What we did last year that worked out really well is at 12:30 to 1:30, we did a PE clothes pickup. So you'll order the PE clothes ahead of time. You won't pick the size out because they do kind of vary from the different sizes. So we'll let you hold those up or try them over your clothes that day. So that'll be one opportunity to pick up your PE clothes. The other will be at the barbecues. And worst case, if you can't come to either of those, the PE teachers will help you get your clothes that you've ordered when you get to PE that first or second week. It's a really fun experience. Typically, I would say 85-ish to 90% of our students come to the orientation. There isn't a makeup, but again, that first Friday, the groups will meet back up. So if students are on vacation, they will still find out their group and meet their leaders and their group. And students really generally have fun. The 7th and 8th graders are always jealous throughout the year when we're doing our activities at lunch and try to sneak in and participate and get kicked out. Upcoming dates. Again, these were in the letter that I sent out. So we've got feeder school visits. We are working on going out to the different feeder schools. We like to meet with the 5th graders, and we typically send out a counselor and an admin to just go over some of the things from this presentation with the students, but also answer their questions. They usually have a ton of questions. They will have an opportunity, and you will, to ask questions next week for the 6th grade student panel, but usually they have a lot more in person, so we'll answer those. We usually throw out some swag, so they always like that, and just start to get to know the students. Again, there's that 6th grade panel date for next week. The electives are due the day after. I understand for some of our students with IEP meetings, those transition meetings are happening throughout May, so we'll adjust those if need be. Then we'll come back in August, and that Thursday we have the orientation, and then the 6th grade barbecue is that Monday before school starts. Tuesday is our 7th and 8th grade barbecue, and then this year our first day of school is on a Thursday and not a Wednesday. So that will be when we start. So they'll be ready to go. This is our contact information. Again, I will send out the slides, so you'll get those soon. We loop, so Ms. Kafka is currently, again, the 8th grade counselor, but she'll move back around with Mr. Wilson. I move up from 6th grade with Ms. Murray, and Ms. Jorgensen and Ms. Jolivet move up to 8th grade. So we cycle around. We are going to take a few minutes to answer questions in the chat and do that live. So I'm going to take the first one. Would we consider adding another foreign language? So when we all were coming into Ralston 4 years ago, they did actually have Mandarin, which is in the question here, as an offering, and there were only 30 students that signed up. That's really too few because credentialing for teachers is really complicated at a comprehensive middle school. They have to have expertise in their one subject versus at the K-8 middle schools, they're considered multiple subject teachers. So they have the same group of students for more than one subject, so they can teach more generally. So at this time, we are not considering another language. Even our French numbers have been declining. We are not going to offer Fun with French as a wheel next year. It'll still be offered for 1A and 1B, but we are going to adjust our wheel offerings a little bit next year. We also, I'm just guessing, may have 10 sections of wheel next year. So the offerings may be a little different next year. We'll still have the core ones with art and animation and the coding STEM, but there could be some new variation in there as well to try out something new. So again, you'll find out what those are when we get back. It really depends on what happens with our staffing. Ms. Jorgensen, would you like to take another question?
Sure. There's another question here asking about, are you still doing the PE waiver for students who participate in sports outside of school over 20 hours a week? The answer to that is no. Mrs. Adler expressed that earlier. Our students are required to do their PE class in PE. So it is the mandated hours for California. So we are not doing any PE waivers at all, but thank you for asking. Are we going to be taping our 6th grade panel next week? Are we going to record it? And can it be shared if we cannot make it? I believe so, yes. Okay.
All right, Mr.
Is this
Wilson's going to take a couple.
okay?
So I see here all clubs are open to 6th grade. We encourage the 6th graders to join clubs to really check out what student life can be like at Ralston, as well as just kind of pursuing some of their own interests. After school sports teams, depending on the sport, of course, are divided by grade. And there are typically multiple levels of ability. There are tryouts. Most sports don't cut, but some of the more competitive ones may have to cut depending on how many students try out.
I see a question about clubs and what time. It varies depending on the club. So for example, homework club, where we have a teacher that supports academics, typically happens Tuesdays and Thursdays before school from 7:30 to 8:15 and after school from 3:15 to 4:15. Something like Maker Club, Chess Club, those are at lunch. We had our engineering exploration club last year and this year. That's after school. The girls who code, that's after school. So it really will be a variety. What you'll see is, for those not familiar with my Ralston Reporter, on Sundays, I send out a newsletter every weekend. And in the Ralston Reporter, it will have all of our clubs, and we update that and their meeting dates and times as we add them. So you'll get to see that in there. You'll see pictures of things going on in class, updates. I will tell you it's very detailed, so sometimes you got to read it more than once, but I really do try to keep you informed about what is going on at Ralston, because I know exactly what happens when kids get in the car and you say, "What did you do today at school?" And they say, "Nothing." So we do try to keep you updated on what's going on and help you out with that. Ms. Kafka, would you like to take a couple questions?
Sure. What experience is required to elect orchestra in 6th grade? We do like to see that students have at least 1 year of experience with orchestra. Having taken that in elementary school qualifies. If they are practicing an instrument outside of school as well, that qualifies. If you are unsure about whether your student can be placed in orchestra, we can request that the music teacher offer an audition. But yeah, typically about 1 year of experience. Then the next question I see is the musical, the performance club, the musical that was done this year is Beetlejuice. That is not year round. It typically starts, I believe, about 8 weeks before the musical starts, and practice is most days of the week for several hours, but it is limited to just during the musical time. And then when it's over, there's no practice, and that is typically in the spring, so it does not have any fall requirement at all.
There is a question here about how does changing for PE work? Do kids carry their PE uniforms to and from class every day? Or do they have a locker? So each one of our students does have a locker that they're assigned, and they do have a lock that they are given as well. And the kids are, they bring their PE uniforms usually in the beginning of the week. And then we highly, highly, highly suggest that they take it home with them at the end of the week to have it washed and brought back to school at the beginning of the week for the following week. So they do have a locker that is assigned to them. So they can keep their uniform. If they have running shoes, they can put them in there as well. And then while they're out at PE, they can keep if they have a phone, if they have anything of value, they can keep that in their locker as well during their PE class.
See a few here. So bus schedule, there's a couple questions about buses. That is determined by Samtrans. We're lucky to have 3 dedicated routes to Ralston, and you can find those routes on Samtrans website. And they come before school and after school. Let's see, difference between band and orchestra. Orchestra is strings. Band, we have woodwind, brass, and percussion. Let's see. Average class size, roughly, I would say around 25, which is actually, for such a large school, pretty amazing. We do actually cap our classes at 28. So generally, you would not have a class over 28 unless you're in PE, for example, or band, some of those larger classes.
A couple more questions about the wheel, so I'll kind of clarify that a little bit. Again, we don't know exactly what will be offered till we figure out our whole big schedule. It really is much more complicated than you think, and the computer helps us with some of the scheduling. The students are placed in the wheel. They do not get to choose where they are put in the wheel. So they move in that rotation. I know that you saw one period had 4 sections, one had 5 sections. That's just because of the number of students that we had signed up for wheel versus an academic support class or a music class. So we needed 9 sections. Again, I'm guessing it may be closer to 10 for next year. So there might be 5 and 5. But again, they're going to only get 4 rotations of that. So even if there's 5 choices, they will only get the 4 that fall within where they start. So they won't get to everything. But again, it's a good chance to just experience something for a quarter and get a taste of a class, something maybe you wouldn't have tried otherwise, or something maybe you would. So there is a variety. Again, we will put out the wheel rotations once we have them. My Ralston reporter will have that information once we have it. Again, we'll highlight the bus routes and any other important information towards the start of school. I saw a question about auditioning for advanced orchestra, choir, etc. You can reach out to the music teachers. We'll get that contact information out as well, and they can determine whether they're going to have an audition. They may also just wait till school starts and let you know whether they can make it or try out. If they join band or music, do they have to continue throughout middle school? They do not. Many do continue, but some decide they just want to do something else, or they just want to do it privately outside. So they'll have the option to do something different in 7th and 8th grade. And if you are on the wheel, it says, can you like switch electives? Generally, if you're on the wheel, you're on the wheel for the year. Generally, if you're in music, you're in music for the year. It's just that there's so many things that are interlocked in the schedule, but it's not impossible to make changes. So again, talk to counselors or admin, and we try to help with that.
There's one question, Mr. Jorgensen answered it, but I would like to highlight it here, is the cell phone policy. We do have a cell phone policy at Ralston that phones should be turned off and in backpacks during the school day. Once you enter campus, it really needs to be off and in your backpack. Phones can come out after school, that's fine, but once you start school for the day, it is in your backpack. There are kind of escalating consequences the more times that this rule is broken. And generally, I would say for such a large school, we really don't see a lot of cell phones out on campus, which we do hear is quite an issue at a couple of other schools in the area.
And to answer another question, the same as for a smartwatch as well. Yes.
And that does include one thing I do want to highlight as well is sometimes students will text their parent in the middle of the school day. And sometimes that might be for a good reason, for medical reason, they might be feeling unwell. And those students might ask to go to the bathroom and then text their parent from the bathroom. And the reason why we do not want that happening is in case of an emergency or in case that student um, passes out or goes unconscious in the bathroom, we need to know where they are on campus. And so there is a phone in the office that your student can use. I think we all can, hopefully all of us can remember to a time before cell phones in school. We are able to communicate with parents with the landline.
Couple of quick questions I'll answer. Do we have to pay for sports teams? It is a donation model. However, if we don't get enough donations, we can't necessarily run sports. There's costs for participating in the league, for referees, for uniforms, for equipment. There's a lot of different costs that go into that. So the amount varies based on the sport, whether it's cut, not cut, how many kids participate. So it ranges. I think cross country and track are a little bit cheaper, somewhere I think around 150 or so, and the other sports are probably closer to 300 for this season. They also have to pay the coaches to coach. Is it the same food vendor next year? We are hoping not. There's been a lot of feedback from families, staff, and students, so they are doing a taste testing, I believe next week, the district, with some different vendors. They're starting that process to potentially look for a new vendor next year. So hopefully we will have some changes. If your student can't attend our orientation, can they get their schedule ahead of the first day of school? We will have the rest of the schedules out at the barbecue. So if you're attending the barbecue, otherwise we'll be out there before school early the first day, and your student can get that at that point in time. It looks like there's a couple more. What is the school policy on homework? How many hours of homework per day? I don't like them to have a ton of homework because they have a lot of commitments outside of school. We know that many of our Silicon Valley students are overscheduled, mine included. So we really try to focus on language arts and math as the primary homework. I would expect they will have math almost every night. Again, they have classes 4 times a week, typically not on weekends, maybe sometimes in the advanced classes, but they should have about 20 minutes of math homework a night, maybe 30 for those that take a little bit longer. And then typically it's reading for language arts, but sometimes it'll be finishing up an essay or another project. With science and social studies, what I tell my staff is I really would prefer that is we're finishing something up from class that we didn't finish as much as possible. But I know sometimes there will be a project or there will be some homework. Again, it's going to vary on the team of teachers that you have. So some do assign a little more homework than others. Are there any after-school programs? There are not any after-school care programs. It really just hasn't been popular in the past. So we don't run that. There is the hideout down at the community center. A lot of our students play sports. So a lot of students just are naturally off campus with their club sports or their other activities, or they're competing for Ralston. So we don't have that program. Ms. Jorgensen, you want to wrap up the last couple?
Sure. First day of school is August 14th, and our first bell rings at 8:15 in the morning. The second bell rings at 8:20. Students should be in their first class by 8:20. Are the students given a laptop and expected to do all assignments, homework on a computer? That is not the expectation. Our students are given a Chromebook. So all students will have their own one-to-one Chromebook. Not all assignments and not all homework is on that Chromebook, no. Some of it will be, but some of it will not be. Our teachers are pretty good at finding that balance with technology and also having that hands-on component as well.
And for those of you who are wondering about the school start time, if any of you have ever experienced the lovely morning traffic that is on Ralston Avenue, it's recommended, it's not required of course, but recommended if you want to avoid that traffic to come before 8 o'clock.
And yes, students do bring the Chromebooks to and from school with them. Yes, they bring it home with them. It is their responsibility, yeah. So we asked you guys please to charge them every night at home.
Okay, it looks like we made it through all of the questions. I'm sure other ones will come up. You'll get some more information for those attending the student panel. So you'll hear from sixth graders. There's some predetermined questions and experiences they'll be sharing. We have a wonderful parent that is coordinating that and working with the students. So that'll be next week on Tuesday at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, sorry. And we will record that, so you'll get some more questions answered. The students and adults will be answering more questions that night. So I'm sure you'll have more questions after you think about all of this. And once I send out the slides and recording, so hopefully you'll get more of those answered next week. And then we're available via email. Our office staff can generally answer a lot of the questions as well. So we hope that you have a great evening. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, once we have the recording, I will send that and the slides out. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.